Okay, welcome to this presentation. My name is Jorge Bravo. I have been actively involved in several ISO committees since 2002. Representing my country, Chile, I have been working as a management system consultant in several disciplines and countries. And I am a training provider evaluator for Example Global. This presentation deals with the Transversal Audit of Risk in Management System. After a brief introduction, we'll talk about the risk-based thinking, a modern approach to auditing risks in different management systems, the input information needed to audit risks, and how the ISO 19011 standard related to risk management. We will finish by analyzing general and specific aspects of auditing risks, the use of a checklist, a case of risk audit, and frequently asked questions. And finally, we will close with announcement. Forward. We could agree that the globalization of trade and finances and the fourth industrial revolution and creating a kind of society where everything can change from one moment to another, and where risk become increasingly controllable. Today, most of us perceive that things do not last for a long time. Personal relationships, commitment, and ethics. Likewise, we believe that the employment market, the continuity of work and of organization face an uncertain and vulnerable future. So, taking this element, let's talk about the risks-based thinking. How did this idea come up? Two, risk-based thinking. Risk-based thinking always existed in organization and operate in the old standards of management system masked under the concept of preventive actions. We know that for the entrepreneur, it is logical to analyze the situation that can cause some negative alteration in the process and in their operations, and that they should act in a preventive way. It is safe to say that an entrepreneur analyzes the risks in the company and acts, even though they may be unfamiliar with the actual technical definition of risks as given in several management system standards, ISO Annex SL high-level structure, ISO 31000, 2011, 2018, in Guide C3 and in COSO ERM 2017. If the entrepreneur has understood and applied the concept of risks for years. Number 3, what should be focus of the modern audit? The audit should focus on the concern or risk faced by top management and assess how these have been addressed. In addition, the auditor should evaluate the effectiveness of the action taken to address risk. See section 6.1 of the standards. However, The phenomenon is a bit more complex since each organization can present different risks for different management system disciplines that it uses. 4. Risks in different management systems. As we know, when deploying the management system, the organization should consider the context and the needs and expectations of relevant interested parties within the scope of its management system. Risks fall on the management system and the standard obliges them to address them. Interested parties have the capacity to generate risks to the organization. And variable context, internal and external issues, move the risks from one side to other, and new risks can be generated. These situations can be challenging for the auditor. There are several examples for risks that influence the management system and may prevent it from reaching its objectives. We will mention some: the failures of process, products and services to meet the established requirements, the lack of proper attention to customer, not providing appropriate personal protection equipment to workers, working on the limits of environmental law, paid for pollution, neglecting computer security, vulnerabilities of the internet working used by the company, lack of due diligence, and absence of emergency plans. Special attention must be paid to risks that are not addressed and that anticipate an unexpected interruption of operations. Since serious consequences for the integrity, continuity, and reputation of a company may arise, you may refer to ISO 22301 Business Continuity Management System. The auditors should have good knowledge of the nature of the organization to investigate risks that have not been considered in the analysis of the company. Likewise, each management system standard emphasizes specific type of risk. For example, for ISO 9001, the level of determination and detail of the processes may vary according to the context of the organization and the application of risk-based thinking, taking into account the extent to which the processes affects the ability of the organization to achieve the expected result. The likelihood of problems with the process and the potential consequences of such problems. On the other hand, the ISO 45001 standard emphasizes risks for safety and health and work. In this case, the risks are associated with hazards. Therefore, in the audit, we must analyze how the hazard analysis was organized and what risks were defined. For ISO 37001, bribery risks are emphasized throughout the standard, and all employees are committed in one way or another by senior management. In this case, the auditor can, for example, focus on areas such as purchasing, contracts, and customer management. In this proven that most anomalies occur in these areas. Returning to ISO 9001, we find that top management must demonstrate leadership and commitment with respect to customer focus, making sure that the risks and the opportunity that can affect product and service conformity and the ability to increase customer satisfaction and determine it and consider it. Audit question. What risks have been identified regarding customer satisfaction and how have they been addressed? The effectiveness of the management system depends on risk management. That is to say, how risks are being addressed. The auditor should evaluate how the company ensures that appropriate actions are taken to address the risks and opportunities, so that expected results are consistently achieved, and if they are not achieved, the auditor should review whether the company applies the plan, do, check, act approach to ensure that responsibility are assigned to implement additional improvement until the need and expectation of the client are met. In all management systems, top management must take charge of risk management. Audit question. What decision does top management make to manage the risks? Auditing management system basis on ISO 40,001, ISO 45,001, ISO 22,000, and ISO 22,301 require the auditor to assess the risk related to non-compliance with legal and regulatory requirements or compliance obligations. In this specific case of the ISO 22,000 standard, risk-based thinking is addressed to two labels, organizational and operational. In addition, for this standard, risk means a function of the likelihood of an adverse health effect, for example, become ill, and the severity of that effect, for example, death, hospitalization, when exposed to a specific hazard, for example, the presence of physical, chemical, or biological agents in food that could cause potential damage and adverse effects on health. To the increases relevance of ISO and ISO 19,600 compliance and management system, in particular in the financial world. Let's talk how to approach risk management within that area. Auditing compliance. The standard for compliance management system established that when planning the compliance management system, the organization should consider the context, the interested party, principles of good governance, the compliance obligation, and the result of a compliance risk assessment to determine the compliance risks that must be addressed to ensure that the compliance management system can achieve the expected result, prevent, detect, and reduce unwanted effect, and achieve continual improvement. With that in mind, the auditor should ask the auditor, are all compliance obligations considered in the management system? How are the risks of non-compliance with compliance obligation manager? The ISO 19600 standard is a guideline that is being reviewed by the ISO EC 309 committee and will be replaced by a new standard ISO 37301 that will establish requirements for compliance management system, which will be certifiable. Now we will analyze a situation that can be challenging for auditors performing risk audits. How and where can you obtain information to audit risk within a management system? We will start by saying that the entrepreneur understands better what is written in Note 3 of the definition of risks used in ISO 31000 and what is written in Note 4 in Annex SL beyond the technical definition that appear in the standard effect of uncertainty of the objective and in Annex SL effect of uncertainty. Specifically, an experienced entrepreneur is aware that there is a likelihood that something negative could happen and the consequence associated with it. For example, when you decide to implement a change in the company, something unexpected can always happen. Many organizations within several industry sectors, including many, the aerospace and automotive industry, require a specific approach and documented information relative to risk management. For example, a failure mode and effect analysis. This type of document expresses the source of risk, types of risks, probabilities, consequences, criteria for classifying the risks. For example, high, medium, low. Action to address the risks, risk control. See clause 6.1 of ISO Management System Standards, and appropriate follow-up. The auditor should use this document information to conduct an audit of the risk and ask if the main source of risks are identified or ask if the type of risks are clearly identifiable. That is, they do not mislead. It could also be evaluated if the criteria to classify the risks are in accordance with the type of business or industrial sector. For example, NASA managed risks that involve human lives and a lot of money. Therefore, it is assumed that the classification and level of detail in risk management should be intense and very detailed. The same applies in food processing of pharmaceutical companies. Other question that can be asked: are the actions to address the risks effective? How the effectiveness determined? What actions are taken to lower the probability of occurrence? What actions are taken to lower the consequence? The auditor should consider in his analysis the sources of risks and potential events that can influence the calculation of probabilities and consequences. For example, a business plan that includes strategies, quality, environmental safety, and occupational health and safety objectives, among others, and associated risks could be considered as useful documented information to audit the risks of the company. In this presentation, we will not talk so much about opportunities. Sometimes the process of risk analysis could lead the entrepreneur to new opportunities. By the way, but we consider that it is an obligation of the entrepreneur to manage the opportunity, above all attending to the circumstances of the current world. If opportunities are not realized, the organization may disappear. The same happens if your risks are not properly managed. There are several situations where risks and opportunities should be considered. For example, in a strategic meeting, management review, internal audit, different types of meetings in the company, meeting to establish quality objectives, planning stage for the design and development of new products and services, and planning stage for production processes. The auditor should inquire if there is evidence of risk analysis in each case. We have talked about risks from the auditing perspective. Now let's see what the ISO guidelines say regarding risk. ISO 9011 and risk management. What is new? Has an understanding aspect in ISO 19011 2018. A new principle is included, a risk-based approach. The risk-based approach should substantially influences the planning, conduct, and presentation of audit reports to ensure that audit focus on issues that are important to the audit client and to achieve the audit program objective. This means that the risks and opportunities associated with the audit program and the actions to address them should be considered. The audit has its own risk management. This must be considered when programming the audit. The extension of an audit program should be based on the size and nature of the audit, as well as on the nature, functionality, complexity, type of risks and opportunities, and the level of maturity of the management system to be audited. Audit priority should be given to the allocation of resources and methods for the affairs of a management system with the highest inherent risk and with the lowest performance levels. Audit risks and opportunities. The determination and management of the risks and opportunities of the organization can be included as part of the allocation of an individual audit. The organization's treatment of its risks and opportunities including the level of risks it wishes to accept and the way in which it controls it, will require the application of professional judgment by the auditor. In short, when we audit risks, what should we look at? Number 8, auditing risk. It is difficult to audit risks if we do not know or understand the context of the organization or the influence the fruits of the interested party. It must be considered that the purpose of auditing risks is to verify in the audited organization prevent the non-conformities of the management system and non-conformity products and services. Assessing risks can lead to the identification of opportunity that could improve customer satisfaction, comply with laws, and also achieve the objectives of the organization. The objective of the risk audit is to verify if the audit prevent or reduce the undesired effect by reducing the risks or through preventive actions. In order to audit risks in a management system, it is necessary to locate concrete evidence, risk matrices, for example, documented information related to management reviews, other audits, or convincing statements of fact. When the auditing a risk matrix, it is advisable to analyze the criteria that were used in the organization to define probability and severity ranges. Sometimes it is not possible to know what the numbers used to define the probability mean, or concepts such as high, medium, low. It is necessary to be clear to what level the risks should be evaluated. That will depend on the context of the organization. Is there a way to measure compliance? ISO 19600. Measuring the level of compliance can lead us to assess a risk of non-compliance. The auditor should evaluate the controls, for example, types, relevance, and effectiveness, used by the organization to manage the obligation of identify compliance and the associated compliance risks to achieve the desired performance. The auditor should know that it is not a requirement of management system standard to use the ISO 31000 standard to manage their risks in our organization. The audited company can choose the method that suit their needs. For example, the IEC ISO 31010 standard provides a list of risk assessment tools and techniques that can be considered by the auditor, depending on the context of your organization. In determining risks and opportunities, the company was able to consider the results of techniques such as SWOT or PESTEL. Other approach may include techniques such as failure mode and effect analysis of failure mode, effect, and criticality, or analysis hazard and critical control points. The audited risks are specific to each system for each discipline. That is, it will be possible to audit QMS risks, EMS risks, OHS risks, etc. On another hand, when management systems are integrated, a risk type can be linked to two or more systems. For example, the lack of maintenance of a machine can affect the environment. For example, environmental risks due to smoke emission, environmental impact, and people. For example, risks to workers' health, respiratory problems. The product and the customer too, risks in quality. This analysis said the auditor to the opportunity are considered in the integration of the systems. In most cases, the maturity of integration could include new risks of the integration system. The auditor should take this situation into account. On the other hand, organizations that have already achieved a mature integrated management system could face lower levels of risk. An additional point of consideration is that change related to the integration of systems can generate resistance, which is another risk to consider in the audit. The auditor can evaluate the option that the company uses to address the risks, avoid risks, in which cases take risks to pursue an opportunity, are control adequate, eliminate the source of risk, the occurrence of another risk evaluated basis on this decision, change the probability or consequences, what controls were implemented, share the risks, in what way, or maintain risks through informed decision. What information shared effectively? You can see section 7.4, communication in management system standard. After reviewing the corrective action, the auditor should inquire there are risks or opportunities that have not been previously determined, or if the action for the risks and opportunity were not effectively addressed during the planning. See, for example, ISO 9001. 6.1. Now, that can use transversal audit. Number one, where the risks identified, analyzed, evaluated, I think if possible, using documented information. Two, are the risks identified related to the objectives of the organization? How? Three, is the risk control appropriate to the magnitude of the consequences? Explained with real business situation. Four, are the criteria for classifying the risks in tune with the nature of the organization? Five, if the action to mitigate the risk was to change the routine, was the risk of changing the routine evaluated? Are there residual risks? How are they controlled? 7. What the risk appetite determined? 8. How are corporate risks managed? This is an open question in this case. Now, we see what happens in a hypothetical case. How we audit the risk. Risk audit case. Audit of a logistic company. A Japanese logistic company examined the that affects integrated management, environment, and occupational health and safety. The analysis considered the sudden modification of the country custom law and unfavorable change to the currency exchange rate and the age of the trucks used by subcontractors. Question 1. for you. What kind of rate should the auditor find during the audit of this company? Answer. Here are some types of risks that you find. 1. Potential delays in the delivery of the product to the customer caused by the new customer regulation. The lack of inventory caused by these delays. 3. Increase in tariff and taxes. 4. Lack of liquidity due to the unfavorable currency exchange rates. 5. Potential traffic accident. Question 2. What kind of action should be found to address the risks and opportunity? The answer up. In the following slide, we will look at some questions that can help us understand the transversal audit risk. Frequently asked questions. Number 1, is risk management safe always? Answer is no, because it is human activity where the identification of risks, controls, and decision taken to address risks can be faulty. In addition, many decisions that control risks depend on the cost, time, and other resources. On the other hand, in the organization, the control could be neglected, or perhaps the managers, even top management, could not give importance to risk management. This limitation prevent us from having absolute certainty in the achievement of the company's objectives. 2. Should risk management look like? The desired risk management is one that supports the achievement of the organization objectives in many dimensions of management, and also allows business continuity and sustaining success of the organization. Holistic Audit Book. To conclude, I would like to inform you that together with Elizabeth Taylor, who is a colleague in the ISO committee, we are developing a book called Auditing. This book analyzes the audit process of management system from multiple dimensions, provides guidance, audit techniques, examples, experience of years of work in this discipline, analyzes real cases from a single, interesting, and different perspective. The launch of the book is scheduled for October this year. We invite you to follow us on LinkedIn and social media. Thank you so much for your attention. I wish you are success in your audit. Muchas gracias. Thanks a lot.